Hey guys, this is Curtis Alexander. In this video, I want to talk about a viewer question that I got, which was, I've talked before, one of the hallmark signs of a healthy thyroid is that you have good body temperatures, particularly in the morning, but those continue throughout the day and you have a healthy pulse rate, okay? A lot of people find this was what happened with me, is that I was cold all the time, my body temperatures were extremely low in the morning and was not sleeping well, a lot of things that were going on. And so basically the question is this from the viewer. They said, hey, like you said, I measured my temperature and my pulse rate in the morning, it's good. But then during the day, I have these low thyroid symptoms. My extremities are always cold, my feet, my hands, my nose, and they're not sleeping well at night. So right off the bat, what this tells me, what they need to pay attention to, and what you may need to pay attention to, is that they're running on stress hormones. Okay, and I've said this before, and it rubs people the wrong way, but it's oftentimes people not having an understanding of how our thyroid actually works, how it functions. So keep this in mind. When you have a low thyroid, you by definition have a low metabolism. Your body wants to compensate, I guess is the simplest way to put it. If you're, for example, not eating enough carbohydrates, or you're fasting a lot, or you have very low caloric intake, your metabolism is down. Without some of those things in place, your body will try to adapt, will try to compensate. And the only way to do that in a number of cases, again, let's use carbohydrates as an example. If you're on a very low carb diet, your body is going to try to compensate by bumping up stress hormones, because that's the only way your body is going to get glucose at that point, or ample amounts of glucose. Why is glucose important? Because you need to convert, I'll call T4 the inactive form of thyroid, although it does have some activity. But to convert that from T4 to T3 in the liver, you need glucose for that to happen. Well, if you're not eating enough carbs, your body has to make glucose by utilizing stress hormones. And in this case, we're looking at things like cortisol and adrenaline. Okay. Now, why? Because it needs to make energy. It needs to keep your body temperature up. It needs to keep your pulse rate going. But keep in mind, the stress hormones, generally speaking, are going to be highest in the morning right before you eat breakfast. And what will happen is, if you're somebody that's running on hormones, as soon as you eat breakfast, you'll see a decrease in the body temps and an increase in blood sugars. Because, for the example of cortisol, once you have that food in your system, your cortisol will go down and begin to normalize. And at that point, what we see later on in the day, we can also see increase in adrenaline as well. So we see that increased pulse rate, but your body temperature will begin to drop because you're not running on those stress hormones anymore. Okay, the same thing happens with adrenaline. This was a big issue with me when I started realizing that I had something going on, that I was eating very low carb. I would wake up in the middle of the night. I was eating what I thought perfectly, because I was doing this very low carb natural foods. But I would wake up in the middle of the night almost wired in a way. I don't know a better way to describe it. But my pulse rate was up and I was waking up in the middle of the night. I was running on stress hormones. Okay. So you have to understand that your body is always going to compensate. There's nothing wrong with carbs. Uh, if you want to run at maximal metabolism, you need those carbohydrates. So bottom line is, these are some things I cut out that were contributing. Fasting is going to increase your stress hormones. If you're low thyroid, I don't think fasting is something you should be doing. Low carb. I got away from low carb, and I was eating very low calories for my body size. Once I got away from those things and stopped letting my body run on stress hormones, I have a constant temperature now. I'm very seldom cold. I sleep much better. So those things have begun to resolve. And so the moral of the story here, you want to eat regular meals, particularly in the beginning, smaller regular meals. Make sure you're including healthy carbohydrates, orange juice, good orange juice, ripe fruits, even honey, those sorts of things. Later on, if you're tolerating those simple carbs better, you can add in some of the well-cooked potatoes, rice, if you tolerate them. Okay. We really want to focus on giving you good liver function. And believe it or not, you need carbohydrates for good liver function. Okay. So stay away from the extreme diets. And then ideally, you want to find other ways to decrease that stress in your life. If you do some of these things I talked about, such as eating in the right way, the stress hormones will go down. But we ideally want to see lower stress levels in your life overall. So, moral of the story here is if your temperature and pulse after you eat in the morning go awry, if you start getting those low thyroid symptoms, there's a good chance you're running on stress hormones. And let me know in the comments, you guys, if this rings a bell with you, if you can relate to this. I'd love to hear your feedback, your experience with some of these things I talked about in here. It's helpful for me. It's helpful for other people that are watching these videos to hear, your story. So speaking of helpful, I hope this video was. I will see you in the next one, guys. Thank you.